Okay, photographers, we are back here in Photoshop for our second full retouch video lesson. However, you may have done 2 videos prior to this already. So as a review, in the first retouching video, you should have learned the basic photo retouching steps. So as a review, that would be fixing your tone, which is your lights and darks and midtones. You would have fixed any color cast by fixing the color balances. And we would have also talked about your vibrance, as well as cropping and straightening. We also then had a video discussing finishing filters. So as a review, you've got your unsharp mask, which is going to crisp up your details and edges. You have the surface blur that is used for portraits, and you have the reduced noise filter that's used to remove that speckling. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be advancing past those basic corrections that you would use for any photo. Remember, those previous photos are for photojournalistic photos. So the video you're going to watch today is going to show you techniques that you would not use in photojournalism, because we're actually going to be making corrections above and beyond what is considered ethical, okay? Because we're actually going to be removing some things, all right? And today is going to be specifically about portraiture. So this lesson would be similar to what a portrait studio photographer might do for, say, wedding photos or senior photos. So I'm going to show you all of those lovely retouching techniques. And as we progress through this series of videos, we're going to get more and more creative. So today's going to be a little bit more creative. Let's go ahead and get started by going to File, Open. We're going to navigate to that Courses folder, Art, Photo Class, and Retouch 2. Let's go ahead and save this. So File, Save As. We're saving this in the cloud. You should be saving it in your Lessons folder, Retouch 2, and then put your name. First or last, whichever you choose, and hit your save. Now we're ready to roll, because now we've made a copy and it's in the cloud. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to review cropping and those tone and some of those other basic commands before we get into the advanced stuff. So the first thing that you might notice is this is actually a mirror image. So if you look at his shirt here, notice that the text is backwards because this was taken on selfie mode. So we need to flip this. You need to use a command that you can't get simply from the crop tool. So we're going to go up to Image, Rotate, Image Rotation, and we're going to go to Flip Horizontal. But just quickly to review, you can rotate an image that happens to maybe be on its side if you open it from the camera. That's your rotating options that are in there. But we are going to go to Flip. So now you'll notice the text is going the right direction. So stop the video and do that now. All right, so let's run those basic commands. We're going to go ahead and we're going to, again, do them as adjustment layers because it gives us more control. So the first one I'm going to do is my levels. I am going to, moving this out here, I need to lighten my midtones. I'm going to darken my darks just a little bit. Move my lights in just a tad. And then when I'm happy, I'm going to click close. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my color balance. This to me is too orange, which means I have to know how you make the color orange, which is yellow and red. So that means I've got to go away from both the red and the yellow. So I've got to go to the blues. Looks a little green to me. It might be a little too. So this one is a little deceiving because everything in here is kind of flesh toned, ironically. And then the last one is I could do the vibrance if I wanted to, but I don't. We're going to stop there. So we're going to say that we've done our retouching. We're happy with this. So we're going to merge these down. So this is the first time we're kind of doing this here. To merge, you have to select all of your layers involved by holding down the Shift key and selecting the layers you want. So stop the video and with your Shift key held down, click on all 3 layers. Okay, now we're going to right click and we're going to go to Merge Layers. It's going to put them all on one layer. So now those are permanently in there. If I were to close and bring it up, I can't undo those image adjustment commands. All right, but we're going to say, hey, we're happy with it. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start dealing with the specific, how do you change the lights and darks in just certain areas? And that is a certain drawer of tools, which is found right here. So in this drawer, and you pull open the drawer by clicking and holding, I'm holding my mouse button down, I've got the dodge, the burn, and the sponge. The dodge lightens, the burn darkens, and your sponge deals with the saturation of your colors, either making them brighter or duller. We're going to start first with the dodge tool. Dodge tool lightens, and what this does is it removes shadows, or areas that are a little too dark. So we're going to zoom in on this side of my lovely husband's face here, and we're going to say, because of my head it's casting a little bit of a shadow here, I want to remove that slight shadow. So with my dodge tool selected, up in the options bar up at the top, you are going to want to make sure that you have a soft round brush. Okay, and for the size, this is where you can kind of pick your own size, but you want it slightly smaller than the area. So I'm going to decrease the size just a little bit. That looks pretty good. So we need to decide, what am I lightening? Is it the shadows? Is it the highlights or the midtones? Now I know, because I'm experienced, it's going to be the midtones. I don't really want to lighten the highlights. The highlights are okay. I like the shadows, the darkness of the shadows. It's the midtones. So we're going to change to the right. We're going to make sure it's midtones. And for these tools, I always like to leave my exposure at about 10% or less, because otherwise they're going to make changes really quickly. So at 10%, I'm going to come across and I'm just going to brush and remove that little bit of shadow that's there. So I'm going to undo that just so you can see. See how that was just a tad bit darker. Just removing that shadow. All right, so stop the video, do that now. Now we're gonna actually make the whites of my eyes and my teeth a little bit lighter, and those are actually highlights. So we're gonna switch here and we're gonna go to highlights. I actually wanna make my brush a little bit smaller. So a shortcut for changing your brush size is to use your bracket keys. Your bracket keys are to the right of the P key. The left bracket key is gonna make it smaller. Sometimes you have to click first here to get it started. The left makes it smaller, the right makes it bigger, but I want it slightly bigger than my eye here, just a little bit. Again, leave it on 10%. I've got it switched to highlights, and now I'm just gonna brush across. Notice it now made the whites of that eye just a little bit brighter. Same with over here. And I'm gonna do it across my teeth, just brightening those up just a little bit. All right. I could also maybe, if I like the salt and pepper look of his mustache here, I can maybe brush across, bring out the whites there. If I want to go across the eye, bring out the whites in his eye. All right, so go ahead and stop that video and do that now. All right, so that's your burn tool. The burn tool is really cool, or sorry, that's your dodge tool. The dodge tool is really cool because if you have strong shadows, you can lift those. So this is handy, these tools, because instead of fixing the tone and the color across the entire image, I'm just doing it in spot areas. These are spot tools. All right, so we're gonna jump down to the burn tool now. So the burn tool is gonna do the absolute opposite. So the burn tool is going to darken, and it works just the same as the dodge tool, so I can darken my shadows, my midtones, or my highlights. I want to take my exposure to 10. I always like to start to 10 to see how it looks. And what we're gonna do now is I wanna darken the shadows. I wanna make that mascara and the pupils just a little bit darker. It's gonna make it pop. See the difference there? Again, we're trying to do this subtle so that it doesn't look like it's been edited. We want it to look natural, but we just wanna look better. All right, so brush across the eyes. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. So let's say I actually wanna make right here, because as you look here, it's kind of hard to tell where my shoulder is. So I want to make the shadow behind here a little bit darker. So I'm going to go back to my burn tool. I want to darken my shadows here, and I'm going to make my brush quite a bit bigger, either using the bracket keys or oops. Oh, darn it. It's just being fussy. Okay, there we go. And I'm just going to darken that area behind, maybe trying to make it look like it pops out a little bit more. Okay. If you want to darken maybe underneath here, or maybe I want to darken the shadows here, maybe, because what you're doing, you're just making things pop a little bit. Maybe I want to make him stand up from that couch a little bit. All right, so stop the video and you're using the bird tool. All right, next up is your sponge tool. So let's find the sponge tool, click and hold the drawer, grab your sponge tool. So you only have two different options here. You have desaturate and saturate. Saturate means to brighten your colors, desaturate means to dull them. So we're gonna say that we're gonna start with the desaturate first. You might be wondering, well, why would you ever want to desaturate? Well, oops. Honestly, places like teeth, okay? So we're gonna desaturate. We're gonna remove some of the color that's here. I'm a coffee drinker, a tea drinker, it happens. So I'm gonna grab my sponge tool. I'm gonna put my flow at 10%, always starting at 10. And we're just gonna brush across one time. We don't wanna we don't wanna remove all of the color because then it's gonna look fake. Okay, so just brush across it once or twice, removing some of that stain that's on the teeth. All right, so that's how you would use it to desaturate. I'm gonna zoom out. I can also use it to saturate. So let's pick, you know what, let's go ahead and zoom in on this part of his t-shirt, going back to the sponge tool. This time we're gonna change it to saturate. I'm gonna make my brush a little bit bigger. And we're just gonna brush across that squid octopus thing, whatever that is, and we're gonna make that color just a little bit brighter. Again, we don't wanna make it too bright because it's gonna start to look artificial. All right, so stop the video and try that now. Excellent work. All right, so one other spot tool you have is something called the color replacement tool. That's in this drawer here, probably underneath your brush tool, so you'll have to click and hold the drawer. So your color replacement tool, what it does is as you paint over an area, it's gonna take whatever color is there and it's going to replace it with whatever your foreground color is. So right now, with this orange selected, if I clicked and dragged over the blue, it's gonna switch that blue out to that orange. But notice it keeps all the shifts and changes in the tones, the darks and lights. So it's not like painting with a solid color. It's gonna keep the form and the value. It's gonna swap out the blue for that orange. So that's one way you can use it. However, I actually want to make this blue tentacle match the rest. Let's say I don't like the blue, I want to make it red. To change my foreground color, okay, so if I didn't want, I could guess at what that red is. I could try to match that red, but chances are I'm probably going to struggle trying to find that exact red. Instead, what I can do is once the color, this is called the color picker, once it's open, I can come into my image window and I can click somewhere, anywhere on this octopus or squid, whatever this is, to sample it. And notice now it changes it. Oops, sorry, I just realized you weren't seeing this box. Let me go back again. So when you double click, it opens up this color picker. So again, like I said, you're gonna be hard pressed to find that exact red. So the easiest way is once this is open, or while it's open, you come across into your image and you click. Notice it changes it. It selects that red. It samples basically, and you click OK. Now my foreground color is switched to that red. Now with that tool, all I have to do is come and brush across that tentacle. You have to brush across it. Now this is nice and easy because the shirt around it, the area around it is black. And the color replacement tool does not work with black and white because technically speaking, those aren't colors like we think of. So there's no color to replace there. However, if there's a tint, like that black is a pure black, if it's like a somewhat of a blue black or a green black, you will see a change in the color if there is any other color in there embedded, if it's not pure black or pure white. All right, so stop the video and use that color replacement tool. All right, double click your hand tool to zoom out or use the zoom tool. So as a quick review, we have learned how to flip and rotate it. We have learned the new spot tools. So we've learned the dodge, the bird, and the sponge, and we've even learned the color replacement tool. All right, now we're ready to get into a little bit even more of the advanced stuff, and that is cloning. So for cloning purposes, there are several different types of cloning tools you have, and they're up here. So this is the last thing we're going to cover today is cloning. So you've got a drawer with these tools. You've got what's called the spot, healing, patch, content aware, and red eye. We're going to focus just on these three Those are your main three. And also this drawer here, which has your clone stamp and pattern stamp. We don't use the pattern stamp in this class. We do use the clone stamp tool, okay? And there is a difference. So when you are removing something in an image, whether it is a big object or a small object, you're gonna use one of these tools. And the way you do it is, you're not actually removing whatever that is. What you're actually doing is you're just painting over it, but you're painting over it with another part of the image. So we're going to start first with the clone stamp tool. We're going to zoom in. We're going to remove this text that's around his shirt. So grab your zoom tool. We're zooming in. So this is why we're gonna start with the clone tool first, the clone stamp tool, because the healing ones don't really work when you have to completely cover something up that looks nothing like the surrounding areas. So this white text is very different in color and tone and texture of the surrounding shirt. So it's a absolute cover up. It's not a blending. Okay, the other tools kind of blend. This is a total cover up. So it works like a brush. The first thing you want to do is you almost always want to use a soft round brush, and you want your size to be just slightly bigger. That's probably pretty good. I'm set at 108, slightly bigger than the area that you're going to be painting over. So we're painting over it, but what we paint over it with is another part of the shirt. And the way you do that is you have to define what you're painting with, and that is by using the Alt key. So if I hold down my Alt key, I'm not clicking, I'm not doing anything, you'll see that you get this weird circle with crosshairs in it. What that does is now if I click somewhere, I'm just clicking and then release, it doesn't look like anything happened. What I've done is I've sampled that area. So now if I come over here, notice that fade black, it's showing you that's what it would paint over with. So if I paint and click and drag, notice those little crosshairs? So it's resampling as I go, and it's painting over this area with that. So I'm going to show you something, because you have to often resample. As that cursor, the plus sign, gets closer to the edge of my image, notice you can't control it anymore. Or let me show you more likely. If I click here and sample up, let's see, I sample up here. So I sample close to his neck. So watch what happens if I come and paint. See, it starts to paint with his neck again. So oftentimes you may have to resample. I'm going to make my brush just a little bit bigger, just so it works faster. Sampling by holding down the Alt key, and I'm painting. So often you have to resample. And this just takes some practice. So this is like if there's a total object you need to remove. So say like there's a Coke bottle in the background, or a cat, or something you got to get rid of. This is that clone stamp tool. All right. So stop the video, try that clone stamp tool. Excellent. Okay, next up is something called the patch. So we're going to go up here. We're going to go to the patch tool. Actually, let's zoom in on this crack. That's on my mother-in-law's wall a bit. Mother-in-law's wall. Wow, that was kind of hard to say. We're going to zoom in here. So what the patch tool does is it does blend an area, but it does bigger areas. So not little spot areas, but big areas. And the way it works is you draw basically a margin or a selection around it. So with my patch tool, I'm going to click and drag and circle that imperfection. All right, so stop the video, do that. All right, now what we got to do is we just got to tell the computer, hey, what do I want to blend this with? So all you do is you click in the inside of it and drag, and you'll see it's selected. I can go anywhere. Notice I can try to blend it with this, but see, you want to be careful because it's literally blending with whatever that samples. You want to go to an area that's similar to what that would be. And release. And then to get rid of those marching ants or the selection border, you can either go up to select, deselect, or you can be lazy and use the keyboard shortcut like me and hit Control D. So I'm just going to hit Control D, and there it goes. All right, so that's your patch tool. Patch tool is used for bigger areas. It would not work, like if I wanted to remove this up here, it wouldn't. I would have to use the clone stamp tool for that, because that's there's too much there that has to get replaced. It's not a slight imperfection in that texture, it's something completely different. So like the crack, it was part of the same wall, it just was an imperfection in that wall. So think about it that way. It's just an imperfection in a continued area. So we're gonna start to talk about those finer tools. So we're gonna switch to the spot healing brush next, but we're gonna zoom in on my husband's face. He's got some wrinkles around his eyes that we're gonna remove. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna grab that spot healing brush, And what this does is a very simple tool. It works for little teeny tiny imperfections. So if you notice, she's got a little spot up here. If I click and hold, it's gonna look like it paints, but once I release my mouse button, it blends. The way this tool works is it literally, you highlight the imperfection and it blends it with the surrounding area. So like this is great for like moles or acne or slight blemishes. So you can kind of clean up that way. So go ahead and stop the video and clean up a couple of those spots. I can even remove that forehead wrinkle that's in there. It just blends it. Great, so stop the video, do that now. That's your spot healing brush. Again, great for small little spots. That's why it's called the spot. The healing brush works very, very similar. It's just a brush, just like the other one. And it would do the same thing. It's gonna blend, but it's gonna blend specifically with an area you tell it to blend with. So for instance, like if I were to blend, if I were to use that healing brush, I'm gonna show you why I wouldn't use a healing brush. If I use this here, it may blend it too much down here. It may grab here. It might not look real, might not look great. See, like it kind of, there's a weird chunk here. So that's why the healing brush doesn't always work, because you don't get to control what it blends it with. However, if I switch to the healing brush, it's gonna allow me to sample from another area. So let's say I want it to blend and look similar to this area. I hold down my Alt key like I did with the clone stamp tool. Now I've sampled, but it doesn't work like a clone stamp, because what it does is it is gonna blend it slightly, all right? So let's do it here. So it allows me to blend with just those areas, because I don't wanna get rid of all of his wrinkles. I wanna get rid of just some of his wrinkles, all right? Then you may have to go back in and now do some minor with maybe the spot healing, and you can just clean that up, all right? So with whatever method, go ahead and try to remove the wrinkles from this side. You can even try the patch tool and see if that works. A lot of times it's just a matter of trying different ones and seeing what works. Okay. The trick is you don't want to remove all of the wrinkles, because notice that just looks a little weird now. So you don't want to overdo your cloning, because that's when you start getting into the areas where it looks fake. Right? I really like that clone stamp tool, or the healing brush. I'm going to go back to that. All right, excellent. So those are the cloning tools. I'm going to offer you a challenge, and I want you to scroll down to where this pendant and necklace is, and I want to see if you can use those cloning tools. I want you to remove the necklace. So I'm going to stop my video for a second, and we'll come back here and we'll see how you did. All right, how did you do? Curious how many of you use the clone stamp, how many use a combination. I started with the clone stamp tool, and then I'm going to clean it up quickly with that spot healing. All right, so as a review, we have learned the spot color corrections and tone corrections. We did color replacement tool, and now we finished with the cloning tools. All right, if you would like to, you can run one of the finishing filters, but otherwise, that is it for today's lesson. Good job, artists.